Welcome to The Becks, a podcast that explores multimedia horror with hosts Becky and Sydney. Join us as we talk about movies, books, video games, music, and much, much more.
Do you know your lines?
I do know my lines today. I know who I am.
Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Sydney Rebecca.
And I'm Rebecca Snow.
And we're the Becks. Great job.
Thanks. Pat on the back for me.
This is going to be episode 20. We need to get our shit together.
Holy Hannah, episode 20. 20?
Yeah, 20.
Wow, look at us. We're getting it together slowly but surely.
I was looking at the analytics, and our worst performing episode is the Queen of the Damned episode, which
Who wants to even talk about it?
It's so funny. Give it a chance, you guys.
It is. I mean, it's entertaining. It's not a good movie, but it's entertaining.
It's really not a good movie.
No.
But tonight, we're talking about... What are we talking about?
We're talking about some ghost stories, scary ghost stories on records, LPs from back in the day, probably late 70s, early 80s.
I think this one in particular that we listened to for this episode was 1973.
Okay. Wow. I was just a baby. Yeah. It's old. But yeah, I probably listened to it when I was 9, maybe.
Yeah, set the scene for us, Becky. Why are we talking about this story?
Well, because the one story, The Golden Arm, my brother had this LP record that he was listening to for Halloween. And The Golden Arm, this ghost story, was on there. And it freaked me out to the point where I still think about it and it freaks me out. Listening to it for this episode, I find it a little cheesy now, but it's still... Okay, so the circumstances surrounding it. You know, I'm the youngest of 3, 2 older brothers, 4 and 8 years older than me. So there's quite a bit of age difference between us. And of course, it was always pick on the baby sister. And I was spoiled, so they were always jealous, even though they were just as spoiled.
I know that all too well.
But it was anything and everything to scare me. Stories of how my parents had another baby girl before me and she died, so they buried her under my bed. And if I was bad, she would come and get me. Oh, yeah. I used to jump from the hallway to my bed, which was like a good 4 feet. I would take a running start because I was afraid to touch the ground if I'd been bad that day and got in trouble. So this
should have been a track star,
apparently. Right? Yeah. So things like that my brothers would do to me. Yeah. Shout out to, Jason. John passed away a few years ago. But he was the one that tortured me the most as the oldest brother. Anyway, I think it was Jason. So my brother that's 4 years older than me that had this record, and he was playing it at Halloween time, and he's like, "Oh, listen to this." Well, it's called The Golden Arm. And backstory, before I was born, my dad worked for the railroad, and he had fallen and broke his back when he was throwing a switch to put the train onto a different track.
Oh, I always forget that was when he broke his back, too.
Yeah, so he fell, he got wedged in between the track and the walkway, and 5 boxcars went over his left arm and leg. He had to have his arm and leg amputated. That was in 1971, and I was born the following fall in 1972. So I never knew him with both limbs, but I heard stories about him having to have them. Stories about my dad having to have his limbs amputated and the struggle he went through, and I saw a lot of struggle. But it always freaked me out that I knew his arm was out there somewhere because he always told me that it had been buried. I have since found out it was probably cremated. But I was told that his arm and leg were buried somewhere.
Why did he think they were buried
I think it gave him comfort, which is strange because he wanted to be cremated when he died. But according to my mom, it gave him a little bit of comfort thinking that they were somewhere. He was only 26 years old when he lost his limbs. So he was a kid. You know, he was your age. So,
yeah.
Well, a little younger than you, Jake's age. So, yeah. Yeah, he was just a kid. And I think that gave him comfort at the time. But anyway, so it freaked me out. It freaked me out that there was an arm. Arm stories freak me out.
Like this, just a rogue arm somewhere out
random
there.
Random crawling hands freak me out. Things
Yeah.
like that freak me out. I had a dad that only had one arm.
Thing freaks you out? From
Thing
the
doesn't freak me out because Thing's funny and cute.
Addams Family.
But creepy, there's other things out there where they've had just random rogue crazy hands that come and kill people.
Yeah.
That scares me. My dad didn't have an arm. I didn't know where it was.
It's a thing in Baldur's Gate.
You know, see?
There's some giant hands that kill.
So how would I know that it wasn't buried underneath my bed and was going to get me if I was bad? So this story really creeped me out.
With your imaginary
With my imaginary
dead
dead sister. Yeah. So thank you to my brothers for traumatizing me forever. But
so
yeah.
Was it Jason?
Jason is the one just older, so I think he's the one that had the record.
So Jason owned this record.
Yes.
It was his?
Yes.
How did he get it?
I'm sure my parents bought it for him or he bought it. He would have been 12 or 13.
Okay.
So he went, and he may have checked it out at the library, but I'm pretty sure he owned it.
You could get LPs at the library?
Yes, you could check out
That's
records.
awesome.
Yeah, I can remember listening to Barry Manilow. Belinda and I, my very best friend in the world, we listened to Barry Manilow. We checked him out from the library.
Don't say it like that.
Copacabana. Yeah.
Oh, no. That's
Sad.
going to be stuck in my head now.
Sad. But yes, you could check out records from the library.
So the Golden Arm is featured on a particular LP called Great Ghost Stories. And it was one of 4 total stories. It was, I think, either the first or it was the second. It was the second track on it. So we're going to talk about the Golden Arm first, and we'll talk about the other ones too.
Yeah.
So what was really cool about these records is that not only do you have the crackling noise from the record, but they also had music accompaniment and sound effects, and sometimes there were different actors.
Yeah.
Other than just the narrator.
Or sometimes just the narrator who made up different voices.
Yeah.
To go along with the story that he was telling.
And some stories you could tell were more for kids and some were more for adults.
Yeah.
The Golden Arm, I think, is pretty accessible for any age.
Yeah. It's not a terrifying thing. I think it was just my circumstances in life that terrified me. Probably my own imagination. So, yeah.
So in this telling, it talks about how there is a man and a wife who loved each other very much. They lived on a very successful farm, and the wife, for whatever reason, had a golden arm.
That she was very proud of.
Yeah, she loved it very much. And
Went from her shoulder all the way down to her fingers.
Yep, and she always told her husband how much she loved it, and she insisted that she be buried with it because she loved it so much.
She made him promise every night when they went to bed that he would bury her with it if she died.
Which is, I know it's just a story, but that's really neurotic.
It is super neurotic, but good for her.
And he swore he would do it, and she did get sick, or she died. They basically
it just basically says, and one night she died.
Yeah, she's died, as you do.
Yeah, everybody does.
And the husband honored her wishes. He remembered that she wanted to be buried with the golden arm, so they had the whole ceremony and buried her with the golden arm and everything.
Yeah.
And the story goes on to say about how the man grew to be very lonely. The farm started failing. He had to sell property and all the animals off. And he was going through some tough times. And one night he thought, man, if only I had that golden arm.
People are dumb. I would not dig up anything out of anybody's grave.
Well, that's what he decides to do. Now, the narrator talks about how it was a very cold November night.
Yeah.
And the wind was very, very cold.
And it's cool because you have super sound effects of him walking down the road with a shovel. Yep. And the wind is whistling in the background. So it's
very eerie.
Yeah.
It's a very eerie wind blowing sound. Have you ever heard, it reminded me of, I'm sure other songs have done it as well, but Holy Diver by Dio. Do you know that song?
I do not know that song. Well, I do not necessarily know the name of that song. If I heard it, I might know it.
Holy diver.
Oh, yes.
I was going to say it's like the most famous Dio song.
Yep.
Anyway, at the beginning of the song,
oh, yeah.
it does the wind howling and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I thought of. But I mean, obviously Dio came after this.
Yeah.
But it is it's just a really eerie sound.
Yeah.
I guess.
They did very well with that sound effect. And again, you have the crackle of the record, so.
Yep, and the crunch of his feet on gravel and all this stuff. And of course the moon was full, I'm pretty sure. It's always, And he starts digging up the grave and you can hear the shovel picking up the dirt. And when he hits her coffin, you can hear the shovel
the thud,
hitting the wood. And he cracks it open. And he...
See, I'm getting anxiety already. Anxious. This story traumatized me. I am a 50, almost 2-year-old woman, and still, nope.
And this man, tore his wife's golden arm from her corpse.
Check it. And she was holding on to it. Didn't they say or something? Like, I thought they said, maybe in my mind, she had a hold of it. She wasn't letting go.
I don't recall. I can neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah, I don't remember.
So he took it and he made sure to cover his tracks. He didn't want anybody to know that he was there.
Yeah.
And walked back home and he started to feel very anxious. It got colder. It started snowing and hailing and the wind was howling even worse. And he started to feel very scared. And he got home, locked all the doors, and he was thinking about where the safest place to hide the golden arm was. And he decided, for some reason, to put it in his bed under the covers.
Yeah, I just dug it up from my dead wife's casket.
Yeah, you know what the best place for this.
Apparently, it was pretty cold. The arm was pretty cold.
Yeah, he did. He did mention that it was ice cold. He tried to sleep but couldn't. And then he started to hear
voices. Well, a voice.
Yeah, he started to hear a voice that was asking,
"Where's my golden arm?" Oh, I hate this part.
It's like a classic. The thing that I loved about this, listening to it, is such a campfire story.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And the narrator, he tries to do a female's voice, so it's even more creepy because he's just like, "Where's my golden arm?" And he does a good job.
And the voice keeps getting closer because at first it's like out the window and down the street where he came from, and he gets out of bed and he looks out the window very afraid and he doesn't see anything.
Yeah.
But he swears that it came from outside, and then it gets closer and suddenly it's outside his front door. And
we forgot to say too that the wife's name was Elvira.
Oh yes, Elvira.
Elvira.
The husband is never named.
No.
He's not important.
No.
Elvira is a bad bitch. That's all you need to know.
Oh, boy.
So he hears it outside his front door. He hears it at the bottom of the stairs. He hears it at the top of the stairs. He hears it outside of his bedroom.
Where's my golden arm?
He hears it underneath his bed.
Yes.
And then he hears it at the foot of the bed.
Yes. Oh. Where's my golden arm?
I think Becky should record her own LP of scary stories.
It scares me.
And then, did they reveal that it is her?
You know, I don't know, because this is where it starts to creep me out the most.
She says, or the specter, the figure, the one who's asking after the golden arm, she says, "You have it!" And jumps at the man.
Yes.
And you just hear a horrible, horrible scream at the end of this record.
Mm-hmm. See why it traumatized me?
It's bone chilling. The scream freaked me out.
Yeah. So you have to listen to it. We can't. I mean, we described it very good.
And you can listen. You can find it on YouTube.
Yeah, it's easy to find if you just search The Golden Arm.
Yeah. If you want to find the whole collection, it's Great Ghost Stories 1973.
Yeah. Spooky.
Very, very spooky.
So that's what scared me when I was a kid, besides my brothers. And yeah, got me into enjoying horror as a genre. I do like to be scared.
Did you enjoy it?
No, because I'm still almost 52 years old, and it still gives me goosebumps to listen to that story. I still have nightmares of my dad's arm coming to get me, so yeah. Woo!
So I looked into all of the stories here, and I could only find something on 2 of the stories, one of which was the golden arm, the other was the guitar player, which we'll talk about next. We'll do that one next.
Yeah.
So there's really no clear origin of where this story came from. It's featured in many folk tales in many cultures.
Really?
It was mostly passed down, as far as people can tell. It was passed down as an oral tradition story, and it was made popular by Mark Twain. He loved it. He was like, "This is the perfect way to tell a story, no notes."
Yeah.
And changes a little bit from culture to culture, but it generally, and this is from Wikipedia, it begins with the death or a recently deceased victim who has an artificial limb, usually an arm, made of gold. The victim has their limb stolen after their death, most often by a loved one or trusted one, in greed. Then the victim comes back from the grave looking to get their golden limb back and scares the robber into giving them back their arm. But it's always told with a great shout at the end to scare the people.
Well, that does a good job. Yep.
It can be documented as far as 200 years back, but it has been told orally for much longer than just the 200 years. Now, they think that the original meaning of it had to do with just respecting the dead and the belief that a dead man or animal can find no rest until its physical remains are intact. So everything has to be kept together.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it wasn't until later on that it became a story about being greedy.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So one thing that, because I listened to this 3 or 4 times, the Golden Arm specifically, I didn't listen to all of them 3 or 4 times. Because this was, we wanted this one to be the focus.
Yeah.
The main character just makes me angry. The man, the husband, because it is just a short story, but he really doesn't take any responsibility. The story, the narrator really blames his descent just from loneliness, and he can't keep up with the bills. So he has to sell everything, and somehow he still doesn't have any money.
So he has to go and steal his wife's golden arm, her most prized possession, and the thing she asked him, made him promise that she would have when she died.
I guess, yeah.
So he totally breaks her final wish, it's a huge betrayal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I understand why, he's a jerk. I can't imagine doing that if that's what my loved one wanted. As much as you might want to because you're poor or you've got issues or whatever.
And he was scared of other people learning about the golden arm and stealing it for themselves because he hid it in his coat on the walk home so no one would see it. And then immediately when he got home, he had to hide it. So he had a guilty conscience the whole time.
Yeah, he knew what he was doing was wrong. Yeah. For sure. And still did it.
Just like a man. I don't care if I make people mad. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, well, all right. So the next one that I really enjoyed a lot was the guitar player.
Yeah, I like that one too.
The guitar player.
The guitar.
So it's about a man who lives in Paramaribo in South America in Dutch Guiana.
Yep, good job.
I did it. I've actually never heard of this place.
Oh, you've never heard of Guyana?
Mm-mm.
Anyway.
So he was super good at the guitar. Okay, people would pay to have him play for them. He took very special care of his guitar, and he was probably, the narrator says, the best guitar player in the whole world. So one day, the richest man in town came to see the guitar player and asked him if he would play at a party. And the guitar player was, of course, very flattered and excited. Dude was loaded.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I'll play at your party, man. So he goes. He plays the best he's ever played. And he's very pleased with himself. He leaves the party, is just kind of idly strumming his guitar on the way home. And
as guitar players do.
Yeah. And this one is accompanied by flamenco guitar.
Yeah.
And all that stuff. And the footsteps and all that.
Yeah.
Just like the other one. The crackle, of course. And a man says from like a dark alley, like, hey, that's a pretty nice guitar you got there. Can I see it? And the narrator says that it was late and dark and the guitar player was alone. So he agreed.
Yeah.
And handed over his guitar. And the man played it.
And played very well.
Very well. Even better than our main character. And that's what our main character says. Like, wow, I've never heard anybody play like you did. And what is it? What's the exact line? Let me look at it. That's amazing, said the guitar player. I've never heard better playing in all my life. Of course, said the stranger. I was a guitar player before I died. And the guitar player ran away. He fucking left his guitar.
Yeah, and just took off running.
Which is so valid.
And doesn't the man yell after him, you forgot your guitar?
Yeah, and he's like, keep it! He yells, keep it! I don't want it! But the stranger, like, keeps running after him and is like, your guitar, sir, your guitar! Mm-hmm. And he finally gets home. And I want to say, too, it seemed like the stranger was going to catch up to him. It was very tense.
It was.
I mean, it seemed like he was just trying to give him back his guitar, but how do you really know?
Yeah, because he's dead, apparently, or something to that effect.
But he reached his house, he ran inside, locked the doors, turned on all the lights, pulled down all the shades. And then, when he was safe at home and the light and comfort and the warmth, he was like, oh, did that really happen?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. He's like, I probably just left my guitar at the party. So he wakes up the next morning and opens his door. And on the doorstep was his guitar waiting for him. And a voice says, here's your guitar. And then he never played the guitar again. Which I think is a vast overreaction on his part.
Might be. I don't know, though. Yeah, it might have scared you enough to be like, nope, I want nothing to do with that thing. Thank you, but no.
He was so successful at it,
Well,
though.
he was.
Made so much money.
Maybe he took the dead man as a sign that he shouldn't do it.
Oh.
Maybe.
Be like, are you going to end up like me? Dun, dun, dun. So this is another story that when I was looking into it was like an oral tradition that was passed down. No real true origin. The other two stories I could find nothing about.
So I wonder if they're the same and then there just was no written story because it was passed down from generation to generation or culture to culture or whatever. Interesting.
So the very first story in the LP was The Mysterious Shipwreck, which I liked very much. It was less of for me, it was less of a ghost story and more of, I don't know. I guess there was...
It was a little supernatural, a little...
Yeah, it wasn't like... It didn't go hard into the ghost aspect of it. It was kind of tragic and...
Yeah, to me it was sad and a little spooky. Yeah. But not...
Not like the other the Golden Arm and the guitar player.
Where's my golden arm? No, it wasn't creepy like that.
So it's about a man who decides to take a charter boat. Where are they going? Back to London?
I don't remember, to be honest.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't.
Y'all can listen to it. But anyway, he decides to take a charter boat instead of a passenger boat because of the adventure or some shit. The man is weird.
Yeah, he said that a lot of times people will take small boats like this because then there's no record of them traveling and you can do pretty much what you want and not worry about it.
Which is
apparently.
sketchy.
Yeah, I thought it was weird. I thought it was even more weird because he said that there was the only other people on there was a man with his name and a woman
and her servant.
Mm-hmm.
And
so why would a young woman travel that way? Just weird.
Well, they explain why the woman traveled that way later on.
Yes, but I'm saying at the beginning when they talked about it, I was a little bit...
Yeah.
Strange.
So the main character, he's immediately drawn to her.
Completely drawn to her.
And they, it's a long journey and they get to know each other. She reads a lot.
And he said they were together a lot. I found it interesting when he said, because he said he had felt very drawn to her and he couldn't stop thinking about her and he had this attraction towards her. But I thought it was funny when he said he sat down with her and discussed his mental health issues with her or whatever it was that he said towards her.
Yeah.
And she was just like, nope.
Yeah, he was just like, I'm so obsessed with you. And she was like, okay.
Yeah,
Sucks to be you.
Isn't that interesting?
Which he wasn't like, he didn't fly
he wasn't
into
angry or anything. No.
He didn't fly into a rage or anything.
No, he said she didn't reciprocate. Oh well.
Yeah, and so they still spent time together. They read together, all this stuff. And what happens is there's a shipwreck. The captain comes up to them and is like, we're in trouble. You need to.
But before that, she fell asleep with the book. Remember? Because she fell asleep with the book and he peeked at it. And her finger was pointing to the passage. I wish I'd have wrote that down.
Yeah, it was kind of romantic.
It was. It was basically talking about leaving your body and meeting on another plane and how everybody needs to do that now and then and
yeah. But he remembers that passage specifically because he found it to be very profound.
Yes.
And then the captain comes to them and says, we're in trouble. There's some type of storm that happens. He says, like, the next thing I knew, I'm lashed to a part of the ship. He tied himself to, like, a banister or something. And there's a great whirlpool, and the woman gets ripped from his grasp.
Yeah.
And after some time, he wakes up, and he's on the passenger ship that his friend had been on, that he originally declined taking passage on. And, of course, he's like, I was rescued,
Yeah.
And his friend is like, dude, what are you talking about? You've been here the whole time. You were just, like, sick. You've just been sleeping. And he's like, but did they save her? Did they save? And he says her name. And his friend is like, how the frick do you know her name?
Yeah. He said, of course I know who she is. But how do you know?
And and there's like this big testosterone thing where they're just like, how do you know? No, how do you know? It's kind of ridiculous. And his friend reveals that she was like his forbidden betrothed and they were eloping in secret.
Yeah.
And
that's why she was on.
That's why she was on the sketchy boat with no papers or whatever. And the main character sees that his friend was reading a book before he, they started talking about this whole thing. And he's like, what are you reading? And his friend is like, oh, well, my beloved, she had 2 copies of the same book. And she thought it would be so romantic if we read it together.
Denneker's Meditations.
Denneker's Meditations, that's what it's called.
Yeah. And the passage was, to sundry, it is given to be drawn away, and to be apart from the body for a season. For, as concerning rills which would flow across each other, the weaker is borne along by the stronger. Though there be certain of kin whose paths intersecting, their souls do bear company, the while their bodies go for appointed ways unknowing.
Yeah, just really pretty.
Yeah.
And he sees it's the exact passage. Like the friend throws the book at him and he catches it and opens on that exact passage. And he's just shock stupid, basically.
Yeah.
They eventually make it to their intended destination. But the ship that, our main character thought he had been on with his friend's beloved, it was never seen or heard from again.
Yeah. And her name was Jeanette Hartford.
It's Hartford.
And when his friend finally said, well, you need to tell me how you know, he just lied and said, well, you spoke of her in your sleep.
That's right, yeah.
And they were actually going to New York.
It was New York.
Yes. So yeah, just kind of almost a heartbreaking. They were traveling apart, so no one would know because apparently her father hated him and didn't want her with him. So they were trying to make it to New York so they could be together. And somehow the other guy ended up traveling that plane out of the body and was there when his friend lost her.
When she died. Which I think that's also kind of romantic in a way. Like, I'm glad that she wasn't alone.
Yeah.
Even if she wasn't interested in him romantically.
He seemed to be her friend, though.
Yeah.
So, and he tried to save her.
He did. Which, I do want to point out, though, I was so mad because he's like, oh, I tied myself to a banister or whatever. And it's like, you couldn't have also tied her there with you.
I thought that. I was so confused then. I'll tie myself onto this and I'll hope that I can hold on to her. But, you know, it's like the Titanic. If Rose would have just moved over a little bit, Jack would have lived. But
no, because he tried to... Okay, no. No, because...
I think they could have both fit.
No, because he tried to get on it and then it was sinking. It was only going to work with one person on it. It could only take one person's weight. I will die on this hill.
I'm pretty much with you. But maybe. You never know.
Like, get Mythbusters on it. Maybe they're very good. Anyway. So the last story in the collection is called Here We Go. And this one is definitely the most geared towards children. I didn't find it it wasn't scary at all.
It wasn't scary. It was kind of like a silly little thing.
It's kind of silly, yeah. And it's about something called a boggart. And I don't know if I'm saying that correctly in an American accent because I don't know.
I don't know.
Because for the longest time, James made fun of me.
Why?
Because I said Dobby. Because that's how they always pronounce, Dobby, the house elf.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I say it Dobby because James made fun of me ruthlessly. Because he's like, you're saying it with an English accent for no reason. And I'm like, that's how I heard it. That's how they say it in the movie. So basically what I'm saying is I don't know how to say Bogart.
I think you're saying it right.
Okay.
That's how I would say it, because that's how it sounded.
I think they say boggart in Harry Potter.
Oh, maybe.
But it's a little different. Okay, so this story talks about like this playful manifestation of something that kind of disrupts lives. It's very mischievous. It misplaces important household items. It breaks dishes. All that stuff. And it kind of escalates to a point where everyone in this family freaking hates it and wants it gone. And the boggart is like, oh, I don't want you guys to hate me. So it starts trying to be helpful. So it does the dishes and puts away the laundry or whatever. But also being what it is, it also occasionally still breaks a plate and steals socks or whatever.
Yeah. Drives them insane.
Yeah, so finally, this family's had enough. The man of the house is like, we're moving away. I can't do this anymore. It can have this fucking house. I don't care. So they pack up and they move. And it takes a long time for them to be able to move because the boggart is not helping the progress at all. It keeps setting them behind. And they're finally driving down the road. And they have their moving van or whatever. And then they hear something from the back seat or something from around them say, oh, I'm so excited for our new adventure. And of course the boggart is there and hadn't left them after all.
Yeah.
Just came with them.
Yeah, no, I found that one super cute.
Yeah. Just something kids would like. And I actually looked into it because, of course, my only experience with it was hearing a term like that was from Harry Potter. Mm-hmm. And in Harry Potter, they're definitely very malicious.
Yeah.
And they take the form of what you most fear. This was not that.
No, this was just a little prankster that wanted to have fun and along the way may have destroyed a few things.
So from Wikipedia, a boggart is a supernatural being from English folklore. The dialectologist Elizabeth Wright described the boggart as a generic name for any apparition. Folklorist Simon Young defines it as any ambivalent or evil solitary supernatural spirit. Halifax folklorist Kai Roberts states that boggarts might have been used to refer to anything from a hilltop hobgoblin to a household fairy, from a headless apparition to a prototypical poltergeist. As these wide definitions suggest, boggarts are to be found both in and out of doors as a household spirit or a malevolent spirit defined by local geography and topographical features. So it said that boggarts crawl into people's bed at night and put clammy hands on their faces.
Ew, no.
I know
thank you.
they mentioned specifically that he would take the bed sheets off of them in this story. And it said that the household boggart may follow a family wherever they flee.
Well, that's a little more creepy.
Yeah. And it's also said that there was a very serious belief that a boggart should never be named. So if it was given a name, it would neither be reasoned with nor persuaded, but would become uncontrollable and destructive.
Well, that's horrible. I don't want one of those.
Spooky.
Yeah, don't name it. Whatever it is, if you have one, no names.
So I guess, yeah, that kind of lends to the, I guess, when I heard the record the first time, I was like, oh, it kind of just sounds like a poltergeist.
Yeah.
Or I guess, I don't know. That's kind of what, I don't really have a negative connotation with poltergeist. I don't know why. The term poltergeist doesn't automatically mean bad to me in my head. I also wasn't totally traumatized by the Poltergeist movie, though, so I don't know. I'm sure other people probably find the idea of a poltergeist very scary.
I was traumatized. But remember, it came out when I was young.
How old were you when Poltergeist came out?
Let's see.
They're here.
For you, you never had the TV go off and be static and the...
Wrong.
Did you?
I did.
Wow.
We only had public broadcasting for a
okay.
long time. I usually was not awake when that happened.
Yeah, well, I was.
But
I was 10.
okay.
I was 10. And I watched it.
Isn't it rated R?
Yeah.
What were you doing?
I don't know. Thanks, parents.
Blame it on your parents.
Yeah, so every night when because I didn't sleep in my bed because I was too afraid of the dead baby underneath my bed, I started sleepwalking. I would strip my bed and sleepwalk out to the couch. So I came up with the conclusion that what is the point in sleepwalking every night? I just started sleeping on the couch because I was traumatized by my brothers. Again, woohoo, glad to be the youngest. So anyway... I would sleep out on the couch, and I swear it was like clockwork. I would wake up almost at midnight, and they were getting ready to shut everything down. And
didn't they used to play the national?
They played the national anthem with the colored screen, the line bar screen, and then right after that, it would go to the static, where she would sit with her face at the TV, and they're here. So I would get up, and I didn't have a remote. Maybe they made them then. Not in my world. And I would run across the living room, which was probably 20 to 30 feet because we had a big living room, and shut the TV off before it could go static because I was too afraid of the poltergeist coming through the TV. So yeah, I was traumatized.
Is that what happens?
I don't know. It just freaked me out because the little girl was staring at the TV and was like, they're here. Yeah, the TV does show creepy stuff. No, I was young. Traumatized. My brothers probably made me watch it. Probably thought I was good enough to watch it. I was not.
Kids always... See, this is the thing, too, is I remember when I was that age, and I would insist upon, like, I'm not scared. I'm a big kid. I'm not scared. I can handle it. She gets trapped in the TV. I forgot.
Yeah, so the whole TV is terrifying. It's just scary. It's all scary. That was a little Heather or
Wow, wow, wow.
Yeah, Heather or I can't say it. Holy shit. I'm having a stroke.
Heather O'Rourke.
Thank you. I couldn't get it out. You will edit that out.
No, I won't. Incorrect.
I've watched you enough. I can edit it out. Anyway, yeah, she passed away. But that's a whole nother thing. That movie was supposedly cursed, so.
Do you think we will become cursed if we talk about how it was cursed?
No. We were not on the set where they had human skeletons and didn't bother to tell the people that were floating in them that they were real. And
so one of the things that, and we're getting off on a little tangent here.
Yeah,
but one of the things that fascinated me about, hearing about the poltergeist and how it was cursed and all this stuff was that they used real human skeletons because it was cheaper than fake ones.
Yeah, that's crazy. Why is that a thing?
I mean, I'm sure that's not the case anymore.
They were ethically sourced. It was
who's saying that they were ethically sourced?
Okay, well, the people that had them, I'm sure. So who knows? We don't know. We don't know the truth. You only know what you're told.
And I mean, the whole movie was fucking cursed, so...
That's what they say.
So they probably weren't ethically sourced, is all I'm saying.
We'll have to look into that curse thing and do an episode on that.
Yeah. Because I was just telling Becky I want to do some episodes about pieces of supposedly cursed media, be it songs or movies or...
But we won't be watching or playing those songs because I'm too chicken. Sydney might.
I don't need any more things going wrong in life.
Me either. Have you met me?
Okay, so let's do some announcements.
Yeah.
We have one super big announcement.
Huge. Oh my goodness.
We're so excited about this. Okay, so we recently went just as pedestrians to the Curiosities Crossroads Festival in, where was it?
It's Flint.
Yeah.
But it was at Crossroads Village, Huckleberry Railroad.
Yep, Huckleberry Railroad. That's right. So they had a Curiosities Fest there, and we met some really, really cool people. And one of the people that we hooked up with and talked to was the people who own Erebus, which is it's the biggest haunted house in Michigan.
Yes, it is a haunted attraction. It is so big. It's 4 stories.
Yeah, 4 stories, so totally enormous.
Based in Pontiac, Michigan.
Yep. And
it's been featured on the Discovery Channel. It's been in business for 25 years. This is their 25th anniversary.
Yes. They're opening on September 13th, which is Friday the 13th. So we got to talking with the people there that were running their little tent, and we got invited to do a behind-the-scenes tour of the attraction before it opens. And
we cannot even tell you how geeked we are for this. Like, this is an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, we're so excited.
They've been featured on the Travel Channel, Discovery, Bio. I mean, they're huge. They are a huge venue for the haunted community.
Yeah.
It's most of their props are made by them, and it's supposed to be one of the scariest. I told my oldest son that we were going, and he said, I don't want to go through that. Because I asked him if he would go with us.
And he's like, no, I don't want to do that.
We're like, so we're doing backstage. We're doing behind the scenes. We're not going through it because they won't be open yet. And I won't go through it anyways because, I watch Hell House LLC. So you already know that. But this is super exciting. It's
an amazing opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And shout out to Dan, who is the creative director of Erebus. Just, we're so excited.
We are.
This is such a big deal. We're going to do all we can. Like, if they don't want us to record in there, we won't. But we're hoping to get some one-on-one interviews with some of the staff, and we'll be able to share some of that with you. And
yeah. Even if it's just some pictures.
Yeah.
If we can't do a video.
Whatever they'll let us do, we're going to try to get away with.
We don't care. We're just excited that we get the opportunity to talk to them. And
we'll have lots to talk about.
They know it's for our podcast, and they invited us. We just told them who we were and what we were doing, and they said, hey, get a hold of us. We'll give you a behind-the-scenes tour. And we reached out, and it
was, within like an hour. We were planning something. We were scheduling something up. So,
so we're super excited about that. It's a step in a great direction for us.
So we're getting pretty serious. No.
Well, you know it is. You know what our motto is. So tomorrow the world.
Yes.
But so we're excited about that, and we did meet a few other people there that we'll be doing some cool things with.
Yes, we just it's hard being adults and scheduling with other adults. It's the hardest thing on the planet, actually.
Yeah.
So.
We have a new little logo that was made for us.
Yes.
That we're super excited
designed
about.
by my friend Lizzie Fane.
So that will be coming out. We'll hopefully have stickers and pins. And at some point, t-shirts and hoodies we're excited about. We're talking to a friend of mine that if she gets the right stuff from us, she should be able to get us some shirts, at least for us to wear. And
so we can represent when we go places. It'd be really cool to have shirts made before we go to the Erebus thing.
Yeah, it would.
So that's it for our 19th episode, The Golden Arm et al.
Isn't this our 20th episode?
No.
Are you sure?
Yes.
I thought I put 19 on the... Are you sure? Did I screw it up?
Wait, no, now I'm not sure. Prove I'm wrong again. I love being wrong. Okay, this is episode 20, my bad.
You had just said at the beginning it was episode 20, and I was like, 20? So that's it for our 20th episode.
I'm sorry.
No, that's exciting. 20.
Almost old enough to drink.
Almost. Won't be long now.
So that's it. Next week, we're going to talk about Garth Marenghi's Dark Place.
Okay.
She's so excited. It's a treat.
I just want to start going, Anyway.
Today the pod, tomorrow the world. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Sydney Rebecca.
And I'm Rebecca Snow.
And we're the Becks.